A while ago, a YouTuber named S.E.A made a video on villain worship, discussing the rising phenomenon of justifying the actions of villains and twisting their motivations to be more understandable and righteous than they really are. I recommend watching that video first before seeing this response. He touches upon numerous examples to illustrate the problems with villain worship and how ignoring what the work is presenting to you can lead to that exact issue. When I watched that video, I thought it was fairly straightforward and easy to understand. Now all of a sudden, I find out that EFAP has covered his video and tried trashing it, and their coverage was terrible. Their responses consist of a lot of what I've gotten used to from them. Overly nonsensical misreadings, taking obvious figures of speech too literally, and I didn't really expect much of this, but constant straw-manning of what the S.E.A was saying, alongside overlong tangents that pad the runtime. I'll try to chop it up to maintain focus on the main points of discussion. With that said, let's take a look at their responses.
Villains in fiction are meant to represent everything we're not supposed to be.
Not true.
That's literally not
I
true.
already disagree.
Literally not true.
Well, I guess we're leading with that. The S.E.A is correct. Villains in a general sense represent everything we're not supposed to be. The core of what makes a villain in a story is someone who makes evil decisions that are impactful to the plot, which leaves numerous possibilities for what that entails. And when we address villains in a broad stroke, this ranges from villains with less evil qualities and capable of redemption to irredeemable monsters that harm others because it's fun. So when addressing villains in a broad stroke, yes, they represent everything we're not supposed to be. This is a very simple to understand point, so I don't know how you're finding ways to misinterpret it.
I would say this isn't even true, but rule of thumb, there's usually one element of a villain that's kind of like, oh, that, if only that were in a good person.
Okay, and what about villains that don't have any of those qualities on a personal level? That's included when the S.E.A says villains in fiction, which is addressing them as a whole.
You know, like, think of the evilest evil villains. Take a Palpatine. It's like, well, gets the job done. You know, like, think of the evilest evil villains. Take a Palpatine. It's like, well, gets the job done. Do it.
Holy shit. Fucking Christ, this guy. Oh, I guess that excuse could be made for Hitler.
Yeah.
Fucking
You know, by their
balls.
logic, you know, he doesn't represent everything we shouldn't be because, you know, he got the job done. That's their logic.
Good God. You want to know the funniest thing, though, is that I didn't even really try with this video. You know, fully admitting this, I kind of threw it together really last minute and kind of half-assed it. Because at the time, I was riding the high of search trends for Transformers 1 and Megatron and all that stuff. So I was like, how can I put Megatron in a thumbnail? So I didn't even try with this video. And I'm still somehow smarter than these chuckle fucks. Jesus Christ. Fucking pathetic.
What a character represents isn't the same as what practical skills they have. The Joker is smart and creative with his plans, but that's not what he represents. He represents chaos and anarchy, whereas Batman represents justice and hope. Batman doesn't represent smart and creative plans even when he's capable of both. So I think specificity and language is key here, and the S.E.A wasn't even talking about their skills and talents when saying villains represent everything we shouldn't be. He was talking about these characters on a personal level, which is why he qualifies this by specifically listing their character traits.
They show us what happens when selfishness, cruelty, and power lust go unchecked.
And he was speaking broadly about these villains instead of restricting them to individual cases. He didn't say each individual villain is 100% irredeemable. This is a straw man. He's saying when you look at them as a whole, they represent everything we shouldn't be.
Doing it.
Driven,
Motivated,
goal-oriented,
motivated,
yeah, goal-oriented, yeah.
Palpatine is driven and goal-oriented, therefore you can't say he represents everything you shouldn't be? I'm sorry, what is this overly literal interpretation of a statement? By this obnoxious literal reading, we can never say that anyone, and I mean anyone, ever represents everything we shouldn't be. By this logic, no human represents everything we shouldn't be because, well, by technicality, they're human, and we're human as well. What's extra obnoxious about this is that whenever people use the word everything, and we can clearly understand what they mean by it, you'll have these nerd emojis jumping in to look for a gotcha, like what we just saw here.
You are everything I wanted to be!
Not true. Otto is suffering from an illness that affects his motor function, so therefore he's not everything you want to be. If we started talking like EFAP in everyday conversation, people would second guess the concept of social interaction.
They show us what happens when selfishness, cruelty, and power lust go unchecked. But lately, there's been this weird trend where audiences start siding with them. Instead of recognizing villains...
That's not a new thing, no.
Why don't you agree with
it depends. Also, who the fuck's siding with Davy Jones?
So I didn't edit that footage. In the span of a few seconds, Mahler went from countering S.E.A by saying villain worship has always existed, so it's not a recent trend, then immediately afterwards demands him to explain who is siding with Davy Jones. If you're aware of this trend, don't play dumb when he brings up an example of it, because that makes you a jackass.
As cautionary
good special
tales,
effects, good
people twist their motives into something more relatable or admirable. Suddenly, the bad guy is misunderstood or had a point, even when they're...
Well, a villain can have a point, though. Often they do. They very often have a point.
That's not what the S.E.A is contesting. He's aware that villains can make valid points in isolation. What he's contesting is using that justification in the context of villain worship. So the point in question would extend to the villain's horrifying actions being the right course of action, rather than being limited to their justifiable grievances.
Often they are there to demonstrate something that is wrong with the status quo that the hero must, like, contend with or find some answer to. Maybe not, like, a strict solution in the moment, but they must have some answer to the challenge that the villain poses to the way things currently are.
Again, this is in the context of villain worship. Someone can have a point about what's wrong with the status quo, but a villain worshipper wouldn't just argue that. They would argue that they have a point for their villainous actions, which is the actual context of what the S.E.A is talking about. He's focused on justifying villain motivations for their horrific actions, not their grievances with the status quo.
The villain should have a point, because the villain has a perspective.
You see, this is what I mean by how literally they're taking very easy to understand statements. Yes, villains by sheer literal meaning have points to their actions, as they have their own perspectives. But that's not how the S.E.A was using that phrase. He was using it as an idiom, referring to when a valid point is raised. Maybe open your ears and understand what he's trying to say, rather than looking for gotchas that miss the point.
Well, and then the other problem, I've seen some people already saying, like, no, he's right, because he's talking about villains versus antagonists. And then it's like, well, no, but this is a huge problem of definitions, because I'm pretty sure Tywin counts as a villain and an antagonist.
Yes, and he's talking about villains. It's literally what his video is about. It straight up says it in the title. Did you read it?
Suddenly, the bad guy is misunderstood or had a point, even when their actions are downright horrifying.
You can totally be a horrifying bad guy and have a point.
He's talking about if the villain has a point for their actions, not if they have a point about anything in general.
This trend of villain worship isn't just frustrating, it's...
Also, careful showing Quaritch. He's certainly in the first Avatar. He's pretty defensible, I would say.
He is the hero.
Sure. Yeah.
It's definitely a choice to label the genocidal organization motivated by profit as the heroes of the story, because it was so heroic of these characters when they shot up a school, dehumanized the Na'vi to justify their violence, and proceeded to celebrate their genocidal behavior once it's all over. It's overwhelming how bad these guys are, so to call them remotely defensible is inept at best.
Look at all that cheddar.
What if they won't go?
Killing the indigenous looks bad, but there's one thing that shareholders hate more than bad press, and that's a bad quarterly statement.
He's pretty defensible, I would say.
Relations with the indigenous are only getting worse.
Yeah, that tends to happen when you use machine guns on them.
He is the hero.
Sure.
Natiri's sister, Sawana, stopped coming to school. She was angry about the clear cutting. And one day, she and a couple of other young hunters came running in. They had set a bulldozer on fire. I guess they thought I could protect them. The troopers pursued them to the school. They killed Sawanan in the doorway and then shot the others. I got most of the kids out, but they never came back.
He's pretty defensible, I would say. He's pretty defensible, I would say.
These people have to learn that we don't stop. Come on, go, go.
He's pretty defensible, I would say. Pretty defensible, I would say.
You can't interrupt a link in progress. Very dangerous.
He's pretty defensible, I would say.
Parker, there is time to salvage the situation. Parker,
Shut your pie hole.
You gonna shoot me?
I can do that.
He's pretty defensible, I would say.
I'm talking about something real, something measurable in the biology of the forest.
Which is what exactly?
What we think we know. is that there's some kind of electrochemical communication between the roots of the trees. It's a global network, and the Na'vi can access it. They can upload and download data, memories.
What the hell have you people been smoking out there? They're just goddamn trees.
It's pretty defensible, I would say.
All right, let's turn up the heat. Switch incendiaries. Fire.
It's pretty defensible, I would say.
And that's how you scatter the roaches.
It's pretty defensible, I would say.
It's good work, people. First round's on me tonight.
It's pretty defensible, I would say.
Stop. These are people you're about to...
No.
Back off.
They're fly-bitten savages that live in a tree. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of trees. They can move.
There are families in there. They're children, babies. Are you going to kill children?
It's pretty defensible, I would say.
If you unironically think the RDA are the heroes or are remotely defensible, then you're either delusional, a genocide apologist, or a mix of both.
It suggests that people are missing a major point in many stories, which is to inspire us to be better. Heroes in fiction exist.
Villains can inspire you to be better.
Okay, stop cutting him off to find another gotcha. He didn't say that only heroes can inspire you to be better. He said that stories inspire us to be better, then follows up by saying heroes merely show us what we should aspire to be.
It suggests that people are missing a major point in many stories, which is to inspire us to be better. Heroes in fiction exist for a reason. They're meant to show us what to aspire to. They're meant to show us what to aspire to, even when the world is unfair or broken.
Again, villains can show you what to aspire to by presenting an alternative or by having lived a life that was worth aspiring toward and they fell from it, you know, cautionary tales and stuff
They
like
can
that.
have admirable traits. Lots of them.
That doesn't mean you should aspire to be villains. The C's point is that heroes are meant to show us what we should aspire to be. Whether or not villains can show us an alternative or have admirable traits that would have led them to a better life doesn't change the fact that you shouldn't aspire to end up like villains. Like, are you serious right now?
When audiences start rooting for villains instead, they're not just misrepresenting the story, they're undermining the entire message.
Well, wait. Now we're into a place where it could just be that the story was badly written.
When you're too busy looking for gotchas in a video, you tend to miss context clues that change what you're getting from it. The C very specifically said that villain worship misses a major point in many stories. Keyword many.
It suggests that people are missing a major point in many stories. When audiences start rooting for villains instead, they're not just misrepresenting the story, they're undermining the entire message.
He didn't specify all stories with a hero and villain. So with that context, when he says that rooting for villains misrepresents the story and undermines its message, he's clearly talking about a select amount of stories that effectively distinguish between a hero and a villain, rather than making this point about any and all stories.
He's like, oh, you're undermining the meaning. It's like, well, what if the writer fucked up and the villain is actually more sympathetic and righteous than the hero?
Almost like that's why he used language like many stories instead of all stories.
Many people seem to think he was right in executing Sentinel Prime, but they fail to understand that no one individual should have the unilateral authority to execute a
Okay.
I'm really
like a
better example. Just a short hypothetical.
The problem is, well, wait, where are you going with this?
Because I was about to say, like, surely there's a more commonly known sort of example of this that could be used instead of a Transformers movie. Because I'm trying to pack in a lot of info that's probably important context in a lot of this.
Maybe you should watch the pieces of media he's discussing before making your shitty rebuttal to it, or sit it out when you don't have the full context. Either would be acceptable over useless commentary.
So I've seen Transformers. This is Transformers 1, right? I'm getting that right? Yeah. Okay, so problem. Optimus, or I guess Orion Pax, he kills a whole bunch of people in this movie.
He doesn't kill unarmed and surrendering opponents. Did you ignore the distinction being made?
Pretty casually.
They kill a lot of other Transformers, and they don't
Blast
really
through
have
them,
a
blows them up.
conversation about whether or not, like they don't have the scene of, you know, I don't want to do it, but like this is going to be necessary essentially to, like, you know, take down Sentinel Prime and save Cybertron and all of that. Like, that isn't really a conversation. So this is a little bit of a case of you're just going to kill all of the henchmen, but not like the one ultimately responsible person.
You just said it yourself. Killing in combat is seen as a necessity, whereas a bloodlusted execution reflects differently on your character and is far less justified. Stop grouping the two together when you know they're not the same.
To defend the movie a little bit, It is complicated as to whether or not we should leave Sentinel Prime alive. He's dangerous, he's destructive, he's caused major damage to their entire civilization, he's practically destroyed their world and enslaved them all.
But he's not dangerous anymore because he's unarmed, and he can only crawl away when he knows he's about to be killed. You can't make the argument that killing him is necessary.
To say like that's never good. It's like, it's complicated. Sentinel Prime I mean, this is the fucking, the prequels kind of tried to cover this,
But I guess it depends on how much you want to say that Megatron was doing it out of justice or revenge.
It's definitely revenge that he's doing it for.
Revenge in his case.
So he's doing it for revenge, not for righteous reasons. So how is this a good thing? His focus is on making himself feel better, not helping others.
But it's more like, oh, well, what if there was more of a... I mean, at this point, you'd be changing, like, what actually happens in the film and kind of, like, what the film is going for. But the point would be, it's like, you can't... It's more complicated than you're actually, like, sort of getting at here.
Then explain it to us. Why is it justified to kill an unarmed and surrendering opponent? Why do you get to decide who lives or dies when that falls in your power? The qualifier the S.E.A gives for why it's bad is that this can directly lead into fascism. And he's correct. As soon as you decide it's okay to execute someone when that power falls in your hands, all because you've deemed them bad enough, when any judgment is capable of being flawed and irrationally driven by emotion, this sets a precedent that it's okay to kill anyone you deem undeserving of life, even if decided on through flawed means, which is literally what happens in the movie when Megatron is willing to let Optimus die in favor of his ideas.
Yeah, well, so he said unilateral decisions on who should live and who should die. It's like, well, Optimus has been doing that in this movie.
Stop being disingenuous. He specified an unarmed and surrendering opponent, not active threats that require violent responses to defend themselves or others.
And that's essentially what he's going to do when he becomes Optimus Prime anyway, right? Like, he's going to be making essentially executive decisions about the way that Cybertron should be.
But he's not doing so by killing people. He believes in striving for more peaceful outcomes.
Yeah, and Megatron is a lot more ruthless than Optimus, and this is like the conflict. But I guess where I'm going with this is like, I don't think it's that bad that some people think that Megatron has an argument.
I'm aware that Megatron has given an argument, but given that it's a fascist-like argument, I've elected to condemn it.
You could kind of see this as Professor X versus Magneto.
Oh, you mean the hero versus the villain? Great observation.
And, just how much should you push back on? Because, like, what Sentinel did was kind of horrifying for Cybertron. I would give some breathing room here, and the idea that it's like you're a lost soul if you think Megatron had a point.
If you think Megatron had a valid point in killing Sentinel Prime, you are misguided. His reasons are entirely selfish and a product of him lashing out. How is that a good argument for killing him? So because you believe someone has wronged you enough, you alone should make the decision on whether they live or die? I wonder if history tells us that's a bad precedent to set or something.
A lot of people thought Killmonger had a point.
And they're wrong too. While he has a valid critique of the system, there's no validity to killing innocent people. So as discussed earlier, there is not a justifiable point to his actions.
But they fail to understand that no one individual should have the unilateral authority to execute a surrendering and unarmed opponent. Those are the roots of fascism. Looking at Megatron as...
Fascism? Well, a lot more things than fascism. But...
Yeah. I think that, it's one of my... It kind of relates to one of the most annoying tropes in all of narratives ever, which is if you kill them, you're just like them.
That's not what he or the movie is saying. What's being said is that if we set a precedent where it's okay for one person to decide whether someone lives or dies based on their personal judgment, this can lead to fascism. Fascism involves the forcible suppression of the opposition, which is what executing an unarmed and surrendering opponent falls under.
Sometimes killing someone is just the right thing to do. Sometimes a situation calls for it, and quite frankly, a lot of the times they deserve it, and if you kill it, the world will just be better and simpler, and it's the right thing to do.
So should we give you the power to determine who lives or dies based on your feelings on the matter? Because that's the position that Megatron is in. He's making such a decision based on his desire for revenge, which is a toxic trait for anyone to have. Forcibly taking a life based on the judgment of one person is how fascism can be brought into fruition. And if your response to that is, well, some people deserve to die, then you haven't actually challenged the problem that's being highlighted.
There's a part where they're escaping, I think, like a mountain at some point, and there's some guards that are standing, and they don't even know that they're there. But like, Optimus drives through, one of them, like, I think blows them up, a bunch of them doing that, because they're still learning how to do transformations and stuff. Point being is that they don't really care that they've probably killed those guys. They didn't really think about it, and those guys didn't really know they were there either. Then Megatron does it, and he has like an unhinged laugh after it, and they're like, whoa, dude.
In the scene you're talking about, they only transformed to defend themselves from their attacks. They were clearly being shot at, so I have no clue where you got the idea that they didn't know they were coming. And there's no proof that they killed those guards in that scene, and even if they did, it would be from a singular blow in self-defense. Megatron shot at the guard, then needlessly punched him while he was already down and started laughing. And there is context that adds to this, since this is after Megatron said he wants to make Sentinel Prime suffer and die.
I mean, they make a big joke out of Bumblebee, like, chopping up a bunch of Transformers with, like, knife hands.
Yeah, there's no effort to be like, hey, non-lethal takedowns, please, or like, careful, Bumblebee, you shouldn't be enjoying killing all of these people. But, you know, Megatron does it, and then they're like, you're a fucking psycho, and he's like, which I'm like, you know what? It's not very fair.
The joke where Bumblebee is killing guards is tone deaf, but labeling it as the same as Megatron's execution is false. The first case of Bumblebee using his blades to kill is an accident, since he didn't know he had knife hands. The next is him putting his hands out to block his body because he was afraid of being hit. The next is him trying to save Orion's life. The next is him going after 2 active guards, and while they do run at the end, they were still active guards that can act in violence, which motivated Bumblebee's response, whereas Sentinel Prime was completely disarmed and can only crawl away to escape death. These are not the same whatsoever.
Again, I said the prequels. He's too dangerous to be left alive. Like, hey, Mace Windu, that's not nice. That's fascism.
Beforehand, Mace Windu tried arresting Sidious even after he killed 3 Jedi Masters.
You are under arrest.
After seeing he can use the Force to shoot lightning, he believes Sidious is armed and dangerous. This is a dumb comparison.
Looking at Megatron as some noble revolutionary who acted rationally with consideration for others is horribly misguided.
I feel like not a lot of people are going to be having that take on him. It's just that he's a little bit more interesting than just an insane crazy man, you know? There's more going on there.
That's not who he's arguing against. Did you read his title? He's arguing against villain worship, not against the idea that he's an interesting character.
And shows how little people think of the impacts of the actions of others. Are there corrupt systems in place in the real world? Absolutely. But giving all power to one person to choose...
Okay, yeah, but whoa. So the equivalent would be if we had a world leader who was in charge of everything, lied to everyone, stole their life force when they were born to make sure they toiled in mines indefinitely, and all the produce that came from the mines were given to an alien race to stave them off from killing us, because all of the heroes that used to defend the planet were killed by this same guy who's been stealing life force from the babies, and then we have a chance to actually kill him. Don't you think that's a bit different?
How does that change the concept he just explained? You're still giving one person the power to decide who lives or dies based on their personal desires, not what brings justice to people. You can still detain Sentinel Prime and have him stand trial. What good would it bring to kill him? Why establish a precedent where one person, based on their personal judgment, can decide who lives or dies?
I'd say you kill that guy.
Yeah, I could imagine a lot of people would say, kill that fucking guy. Kill that fucking guy right now.
I don't care how many people would agree with killing Sentinel Prime. That's not an argument against what the S.E.A is saying. That's an appeal to popularity fallacy. You can use that reasoning to justify slavery at a time it was popular. Make a real argument.
That's actually a lot more understandable than the Hawk Girl example.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like saying like Megatron was a psycho for this. Like, I don't know.
The S.E.A didn't say Megatron is a villain for this alone. Megatron has committed other horrible acts that would place him in the category of villain. This is, however, a decision that led him to villainy, a decision which he believes shouldn't be glorified or worshipped. Now, can you contend with what he's actually saying, or are you gonna strawman again?
Detaining Sentinel Prime might not have been very easy.
Detaining a guy who can only crawl around is too difficult, but picking him up and ripping him in half isn't. Okay.
Dangerous to be left behind.
Could have brought that guy to be like put on trial for war crimes. Right?
Well, how many loyalists is he going to have?
So there's a lot of complications.
Why does he need to be dead to lose loyalists? If they're loyal to him, killing him would bring him to martyr status in their eyes. If anything, they'd be more likely to avenge him if he were killed, which is another reason you shouldn't just kill people. That extends the cycle of violence. Showing that you're better than that can inspire others to rise above those vengeful desires. Call me crazy, but I don't think telling people that they deserve to die for what they believe in or what they do is going to convince them to think otherwise.
Who lives or who dies arbitrarily arbitrarily in accordance to their own personal ego.
I don't know if it's arbitrarily. He has a system. Megatron's not just killing people randomly.
Megatron killing Sentinel Prime is entirely based on personal whim. Did you watch the movie?
No, I want to kill him! I want him to suffer and then to die in darkness.
It's a horrifying stance to have. What if we have the opposite? Sometimes the villain isn't a person wanting to upend the system, but the system itself, like the RDA in Avatar. The RDA is the ultimate corporate villain, representing greed, exploitation.
I feel like we can come up with, probably worse corporate entities, but
And the dehumanizing effects of capitalism. Their goal is simple. Mine Pandora for unobtainium, no matter the cost. To them, the Na'vi are just obstacles.
Unobtainium, yeah, that's great.
And Pandora's
Still funny, like almost 20 years later.
Lush ecosystems are just another resource to be harvested. What's scary with the RDA is how realistic they are. In the real world, corporations and governments have justified similar actions in the name of progress.
That's weird, because my take is that it's very unrealistic how they would do all this stuff, considering they have an entire planet to work with, and they seem to be specifically cartoonishly evil in a lot of ways, and incompetently so, to try and get what they want.
So the RDA is cartoonishly evil, but they're also defensible heroes of the story. Sure.
Yeah, the first one is just unobtainium is valuable for reasons unstated, so we want it. So
Yeah, I wonder, why would something named unobtainium be valuable? I don't know. I can't think of anything that implies the rarity of this resource. Now, on top of it being highly rare, they explicitly tell you of its practical uses.
Yeah, so what does hold them up? Some kind of maglev effect? Because unobtainium is a superconductor.
That's why it's so unsettling when some viewers argue the RDA is practical, or they're just doing what needs to be done. This line of thinking echoes the same excuses used to justify
that's
deforestation.
actually my criticism, that they're very impractical, and they are incapable of doing what needs to be done, which is wiping out the giant hippies.
If anything, it's like you feel like they would want to avoid conflicts a whole bunch just because of all the trouble it would cause, instead of... sure, you've got a whole planet to work with, and you could land anywhere on it that you want, I would imagine. Was there
it's
a
all
plot
underneath
reason?
the tree rag, specifically.
Oh, and...
Well, then they go get it from the side.
Get it from the side of what? The planet? You want them to drill through an entire planet just to get there? That's impractical, so it can't be from there. Do you want them to enter from the side of the tree? Because that's what they do when bulldozing it. They start from the side, which leads to the tree anyway.
This is fair, by the way. So immediately after killing Sentinel, Megatron has the elite guards, Decepticons, destroying Iacon and attacking the populace. He's literally killing random people because he's angry. I remember thinking... I don't know why he's destroying Iacon when they've got to deal with the alien people in the surface as well, so you should just be taking over Iacon rather than destroying it.
Because Megatron is lashing out after having snapped from his discovery. He wants revenge above all else, and it clouded his judgment. His ego couldn't handle the idea of Sentinel Prime having any support or legacy while he takes power.
General environmental destruction and genocides against different ethnic groups. But Avatar isn't subtle with who's in the right. Jake Sully and the Na'vi represent the harmonious way of living that respects life and the planet. The RDA, on the other hand, is a cautionary tale of what happens when humanity loses its connection to nature. Rooting for them, or even sympathizing with their goals, completely misses the point. This is a universe with a canon deity that connects all living things on the planet.
Yeah, oh, by the way, just to be clear, you can have God... I mean, I literally brought up Warhammer earlier, but just because there is an actual supernatural deity in the universe doesn't mean that that agent is good, moral, or is worthy of worship or respect.
Yep.
Planet.
Especially not
killing
the
Oh, fuck no, yeah.
Planet is killing an actual conscious entity. Many people even argue that humanity needs to survive by the time of the Way of Water, so the RDA must colonize Pandora, right? To that I'd like to ask, why did Earth get to that point in the first place? Why should history repeat itself with a species that
die?
What am I supposed to do?
Responsible for that die.
Stop cutting him off and maybe you'd hear his point in full.
This line of thinking echoes the same excuses used to justify deforestation, general environmental destruction, and genocides against different ethnic groups. Many people even argue that humanity needs to survive by the time of the Way of Water, so the RDA must colonize Pandora. Why should history repeat itself with a species that had zero say in the matter of what humanity does to their planet or Earth?
The S.E.A. isn't saying to let people die, he's saying they shouldn't repeat the mistakes that damage life on Earth and give the people of Pandora zero say in what happens to their planet. As I've shown earlier, the RDA has no qualms with dehumanizing the Na'vi and killing their children. Their attempts to minimize casualties are performative at best rather than a priority, even if we had to accept that they had to bulldoze the tree. And survival is not the argument they make in favor of bulldozing their home. The argument they actually make is that it will make them money.
Killing the indigenous looks bad, but there's one thing that shareholders hate more than bad press, and that's a bad quarterly statement.
Nothing about the need to survive was mentioned, but their need to profit off their work is, even if they have to commit genocide. If you actually think that this is remotely defensible because they need to survive, then you're a genocide apologist. I understand that label may be offensive to you, and I'm very sorry that offends you, but when I see an apple in the kitchen, I'm calling it a fruit.
Yeah, what is this guy fucking advocating for here? The whole human race should just shrivel up and die. Like, there's just, oh well, give up.
Earth had a chance.
This is mind-numbing to listen to. It's like I'm hearing someone justifying the genocide in Gaza as Israel taking necessary action to survive. I certainly hope that doesn't resemble anything that they believe in.
What sort of a useful lesson is that? Like, just reject humanity entirely?
Yeah.
I kind of can't do that.
Yeah, that's some bullshit.
You still haven't let the C finish his points while you're running off this disgustingly disingenuous straw man. Play the rest of the clip already. You're boring me.
Bro say in the matter of what humanity does to their planet or Earth. One of the messages of this film is for us to get our shit together because our planet is pretty neat and we should preserve.
Well, but wait, what if it's too late though? You just said we just die.
The message isn't to get our shit together, the message is to die. To stop being human.
Yeah, stop being human.
Is that why the end of the film shows the Na'vi and humanity coexisting in peace? Maybe that implies the story isn't anti-humanity, but rather advocating for different people to coexist with one another. Did you ignore the film?
Instead of ruining it for future generations. Ever wonder why some characters are written without much depth? Because there isn't any depth to be had with topics like this.
Oh.
You are a moron.
With the premise, then, isn't it?
Yeah, you are a moron.
No, he's correct. When talking about genocidal behavior, which is what he was doing because he was referring to how the RDA forcibly colonized Pandora, there isn't any depth to be had in a conversation about whether that's right or wrong. They're committing genocide. They are perfectly willing to prioritize profit over indigenous lives. I'm not even sorry if I offend you. You're a fucking idiot if you think the genocide of people's lives is remotely negotiable.
You can assert that these things are just simple and they're easy. You can say that. It doesn't make it true. It makes you sound, well, like a simpleton.
Genocide is fucking evil. That's as far as you need to go in terms of the morality behind that topic. I can't believe I have to explain this to grown adults in their 30s.
It's easy. It's simple. Humans are bad.
Goodbye, sir. I will not even dignify that argument with a response.
If this message is lost to anybody with how abundantly clear the messages are, I have no words. But what happened?
I don't care. I don't care if the movie tells me what I'm supposed to think of the situation as opposed to me looking at it and deciding for myself, okay?
I know you don't care, since you've decided that the genocidal maniac is the hero of the story.
Depends when the villain is who you've been following the whole time. Paul Atreides from Dune is pretty neat. He starts out as a heroic archetype, a young man thrust to a dangerous political conflict who rises to become the messianic leader of the Fremen. But what if the Messiah had other plans? What if destiny had darker ambitions? By the end of Dune 2, Paul is no longer the noble savior he appeared to be. He becomes
Well, that depends on who you ask.
I haven't seen this movie, so I'll reserve judgment for another time, but all I'm gonna say is that you're probably the last person I would ask about who the hero or villain of a movie is, but if someone wants to refute what they say about this movie, go right ahead. The door is open.
Weight of his role as Quadit Todorich, knowing that his rise will lead to a galaxy-wide jihad in his name. Fans often argue that Paul is justified because he's trying to navigate a no-win situation.
Well, but wait.
Didn't they just say just leaves Arrakis? Like, I don't know about galaxy-wide. Didn't he just say, yeah, fucking leave us alone? But we get to control the spice. It's our planet. It's our resource.
Are we not bordering on to the point of him just being mad that people don't agree with him on his analysis of certain characters?
Ah, yes, because responding to the things that people say that he disagrees with means he's getting mad that people disagree with him. Even though you're making a stream right now, responding to someone that you disagree with.
Cause hot damn, you wanna know what's a scam? Your fucking education, nigga. That's what the scam is.
Like, he's just like, no, stop thinking they have a point. You're actually kind of evil for thinking this. You're like, alright, jeez.
It depends on what you think someone has a point on. If you think someone has a valid point in making evil decisions, you know, the concept of villain worship, then you likely have some immoral viewpoints of your own. This is an accurate description based on implications.
I just find it so odd that he's basically laid out that it's an interesting interesting character to break down and to draw certain parts out of. You may not necessarily think that... You know, he's talking about how these are just definitively evil. Stop thinking they have any points. So, none?
It's almost like he never said, stop thinking they have points. What he actually said was in relation to having a point to their evil decisions, because it implies that they were correct decisions to make. It's almost as if the context is about villain worship.
So
of course,
if the Na'vi decide to eradicate humanity in Avatar 3 or 4, like are they good because they're on the side that's definitively good?
No, which is why he said that colonizing Pandora is bad and that they were given no say in how their planet turns out in the future.
Remember, that was his prescription. He was just like, just die. You fucked up Earth, so you should just die.
What? What are you, stupid? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to just say, yeah, all these conflicts and morality and the good side, the bad side, it's just evil.
Correct. Genociding a population in favor of profit is just evil.
Or it's just simple. It's easy and simple. It's not complicated, but like the reality is, it is.
Okay, so it's complicated whether genocide is bad. I understand you.
I have to talk about their tragic villain, Davy Jones. Jones is one of the most memorable antagonists of the series, thanks to his eerie design, haunting backstory, and iconic presence. But as compelling as he is, he's still a villain. A broken man who
Okay, who the fuck disagrees with this?
People who worship villains, which you've said isn't a new trend and has been around forever. Probably because very bad people have always existed in history.
So what, in what universe is anyone saying like, you know, Davy Jones has a point?
He forced a woman to commit suicide. How's he a good person? I'm not sure.
No. Hold on. That woman, she was going to commit suicide anyway. She wasted his time.
No, she was not going to commit suicide.
She originally was going to commit suicide. In fact, it was only upon seeing Homelander act the way he acted that she wanted to bitch out of it and act like a coward. So in fact, Homelander was keeping her consistent.
A coward?
That's correct. If you make a decision, right, to do something and then you back out of it, you're a coward.
That sounds retarded, man. And it sounds like...
How does that sound retarded?
You just as... All right, it sounds like if you truly believe that, you're just as evil as Homelander. I believe that if he...
Yes, listen to me. We can end this right now. We can end this right now. I am just as quote-unquote evil as Homelander. 100%. I identify with Homelander more than any other superhero.
Explains a lot.
It very much does. So what you should definitely hope that does not happen to Lucas is if I fall into superpowers. Because if I fall into superpowers, what Homelander does is going to be very much accurate to what I do. 100%.
Jones' story began with heartbreak. He fell in love with the sea goddess Calypso and agreed to ferry the souls of the dead in exchange for her love.
Right.
But when Calypso betrayed him, he abandoned his duty, carving out his own heart and locking it away. Over time, he became bitter and vengeful, twisting his pain into cruelty. He enslaved his crew, terrorized the seas, and became a legend of terror. It's easy to feel sorry for Jones because his pain is so relatable. Who hasn't been hurt by someone trusted?
But Paula Atreides said something to get this entire family murdered? What?
Yeah.
What? I don't know if I've ever been tricked into becoming a terror of the seas before, so I'm not sure I can relate.
He didn't say his actions were relatable. He said that the pain of being hurt by someone you trusted can be relatable. Did you hear it?
Well, yeah, hang on. So, like, you're allowed... It's totally fine to say, oh, man, that sucks that happened to you, Davey. But you're still a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
getting
that doesn't
justify all the other
than having your entire family murdered. Like, what?
That is, like, one of the most common, like, villain conclusions. Honestly, like, what happened to you was not right, but the way you are now going forward with that experience is
like turn it all down.
I don't want him to escape this. It's like, show me who is worshipping Davy Jones as a good person that you should emulate. Tell me. I need to know how. Because, like, just saying, you know, yeah, sure, he's got some pain there. But, like, you shouldn't be thinking of him as anything other than a villain. It's like, nobody is. Who are you talking to?
Again, you said it yourself, that villain worship has existed long before this recent video, and many villains are based around the worst decisions that humans can make, which is also documented throughout our history.
I feel sorry for Jones because his pain is so relatable. Who hasn't been hurt by someone they trusted?
But like, it's like, so he's, to be clear, he's just said, like, it is chill to feel a bit sorry for him, right? He's okay with that? He's on board? Okay.
He was way more charitable to David Jones than any of the other
Which is so weird, because he's like easily the most monstrous out of all of them.
Yes.
The S.E.A didn't say that you can never sympathize with someone's pain. He says that you shouldn't sympathize with specifically the RDA's goals, because they are ultimately evil goals.
This line of thinking echoes the same excuses used to justify deforestation, general environmental destruction, destruction and genocides against different ethnic groups. Rooting for them, or even sympathizing with their goals, completely misses the point.
Who the fuck said he's justified?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, who?
I don't know.
I've never heard this take.
I should start making up people and talk about them on my channel.
You mean like what you're doing on this exact stream?
Finally, there's Senator Armstrong for Metal Gear Rising.
Oh my
god.
No way.
Only the strong survive, tearing down institutions and systems in the process.
I think this person does not understand the concept of obviously ironic memes that are like making these people out to be Chads.
Sure, some people out there are probably making memes that jokingly frame these characters as worthy of praise on a personal level, but that's not who the C is referring to. He's referring to actual worship.
Obviously, we understand these people are the bad villains of the story. Exactly. We're just having fun on the internet.
You're the same group of people who said the RDA are heroes. I'm not taking this statement seriously.
The rise of villain worship says a lot about how people view the world. It's easy to be entertained by villains.
The rise of villain worship.
If you're the herald of truth and justice and morality, you're not.
Nobody tell this guy about like.
They're confident, powerful, often reflect frustrations with broken systems, but glorifying them misses the bigger picture. Villains aren't meant to be role models. They're cautionary tales, showing us what happens when we give in to our worst instincts.
Wow, thank you. I would have never known that if you didn't tell me.
You guys said a genocidal maniac is defensible. You do need to hear this.
Characters like Optimus Prime, Jake Sully, and Will Turner aren't...
Man, I'm going to be honest with you.
Jake Sully is...
Jake Sully, Will Turner, and to a much lesser extent, Optimus Prime. It's just like, you guys are nowhere near as interesting as a collective compared to someone like Quaritch or Megatron or Davy Jones, even though he's completely obviously a fucking villain. I'm just saying, it's just funny because Jake Sully is like, oh gosh, it's the white plain bread. And it's like, Will Turner, look, I like you, but... You know, there's not much to think about, I guess. The idea that it's like, oh, he's supposed to be so inspired by Jake Sully. Like,
I don't see the purpose of undermining Jake Sully as a hero. Personally, I don't care what you find interesting or not, but he still represents what people should aspire to be. He reflects the qualities needed in a hero, so he is a valid example.
Whenever they say, like, the Navi and Avatar, they live in harmony with nature, they don't. They quite forcibly shove their USB sticks in places they don't belong.
Hijack living beings and control them.
They're not hijacking living beings, they're taming them to form a connection.
Yeah, and they seem actually pretty against it until it's locked in, you know? Which
is pretty fucked up.
A little bit. I've seen people refer to it with different words, but...
So taming an animal through specific means is messed up, but the heroes of the story are the ones trying to commit genocide. You are not serious people.
But they'll fight for what's right even when it's hard. They remind us that being a hero isn't about being flawless, but it's about choosing to do the right thing.
Oh, wow. Hell yes.
Jake's flaws that he's crippled.
Gee, thanks, Mom.
The video is directed towards those who engage in villain worship, and therefore do need to hear this. And you're part of the problem, unfortunately.
How difficult it is. Heroes show us why they're worth fighting for. It's time we started paying attention to that message. That's it for today's video. If you liked it.
Okay, I will be good. I will be good, and I will not be bad.
You didn't learn your lesson last time. That's cool. We can give you a refresher course.
This response was really bad. I'm actually floored by how bad these arguments were. The C is still correct in his video, and EFAP has only displayed incompetence in their response. Even though I expect a disagreement, I didn't expect it to get this bad and disingenuous as what I've heard regarding the Transformers 1 and Avatar takes, alongside the bad faith framing of the C's arguments. On the subject of Avatar, the C has a video coming up on his channel soon discussing the writing of Avatar. Stay tuned for that. I will link his channel in the description for you to check that out. That's all I've got for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what I should respond to next and consider subscribing. I'll see you all in the future. Goodbye.